the GOP cavalry's coming, but does it have a plan to fix inflation and the economy? Well, here to tell us, Congresswoman Elise, chair of the House Republican Conference. Elise, welcome back. Great pleasure to see you. You know all about the inflation and the inflation numbers. So I have this easy question for you. If you get the House, I reckon you're going to get the House. God, I hope you do. What you going to do about it? What's the plan? Let's start with inflation. What's the plan to fix inflation from the House Republican cavalry?
Well, listening to your introductory segment, Larry, you were exactly right that inflation is the #1 issue impacting every American family. House Republicans, we have unveiled our commitment to America because the American people know that single-party Democrat rule has failed, but they also need to know what House Republicans tend to accomplish if and when we are in the majority. Top of the list is an economy that's strong. That means immediately stopping the trillions and trillions of dollars of reckless spending that has gone out the door that has fueled this inflation crisis. So bringing the budget back to balance and putting an absolute stop to those reckless spending bills that have occurred under Nancy Pelosi's leadership. That's point one. Point two is there's an important energy piece to this, Larry. We have seen Joe Biden essentially do everything he can to crush American energy independence. House Republicans have bills that are ready to move. Unfortunately, Nancy Pelosi hasn't brought them up, but we will, to unleash American energy independence, to lower the price of gas, lower the price of utilities, lower the price of home heating. But this is a historic inflation crisis, and the American people are smart. They know it's because of Joe Biden working with Democrats in the House and the Senate.
Elise, let's go back to this. By the way, you mentioned a balanced budget. I really like that. It wasn't explicit in the commitment to America, but I'm glad you let the cat out of the bag because I think you can. Just as a principle, you may not get there right away. I understand how hard it has been in that business myself. But people ask me, Elise, what could the cavalry do to repeal, to undo the bad stuff? In other words, we're all rooting for you to stop new bad stuff. But realistically, legislatively, can you undo, can you repeal some of the bad things on energy, for example, on permitting and pipelining, on the tax increase on business that we just had, on all this crazy spending on renewables and so forth? Is there a way to do that, to force Biden into a deal of some kind?
Absolutely. So we have the power of the purse through the appropriations process. So when it comes to these new reckless programs or Green New Deal programs that have just been, hundreds of billions of dollars, Larry, that have fueled this inflation crisis, one of many, many things that have fueled the inflation crisis, we have the power of the purse through the appropriations process. We can make sure that they are not funded. We can rein in and not authorize certain new programs that are a complete waste of taxpayer dollars. And we ought to be looking at every single one of these reckless new programs in the next Republican majority to make sure that if it is fueling inflation, which it is, that we rein it in. Another bill that I've proposed is the Rein in Inflation Act that specifically has to do with executive actions issued by President Biden. So it's not just Pelosi's Congress that have caused this, but it's also those executive orders. And I want every single executive order that the president issues to have an inflationary impact study public for the American people, because many of his executive actions have fueled this crisis.
I like that. I think that's a really good idea to use that REINS Act. It hadn't been used nearly enough. You probably, Elise, you probably inherit a recession. I think it's almost inevitable. I think we're probably in it already. And you're also going to inherit high inflation. So the trick there is to cut down spending and pray that the Fed gets its act together. What about, growth policies, anti-recessionary policies? You're probably going to be in the middle of a recession on January 3rd, 2023. What can you do there?
Well, we're in a recession now, Larry. I mean, my constituents feel it. I was just at the grocery store earlier this week, and people feel the economic crunch. And there's a fear of what's ahead when it comes to where the economy is headed under Joe Biden. So yes, unfortunately, we're going to inherit this historic inflation. In terms of pro-growth policies, making sure we make permanent the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, looking at reduction of regulations, which was a huge achievement that you were very much a part of of during the Trump administration to unleash job growth in America. And lowering taxes is always a good idea when it comes to creating job growth, allowing small businesses and manufacturers to have the ability to hire more individuals. So there's a lot that we absolutely must do when it comes to pro-growth policies.
Yeah, you know, I think as difficult as it may be, and you might face the veto pen by a desperate Biden. I mean, I don't know how he'll behave. But I think just talking about it, and the way you are, and the way Kevin was on the show with the commitment to America and Steve Scalise, you know, I think that's going to be very good, uplifting for the spirits. And, you know, I hope you stay on track. Some people want to be persuaded that you all can do something to turn this thing around. And I think the more you talk about it, the better it's going to be. Elise, just before I lose you in the last minute, story today in the New York Post and National Review by my pal Andy McCarthy, utter proof that the FBI framed Trump and shielded Hunter Biden. I mean, they actually at one point wanted to pay this jerk Steele $1 million to corroborate these crazy stories of Trump and Moscow and sexual craziness and other things. And they couldn't even do that, but they tried to bribe him with $1 million payment. My point is, and it's the same people in the FBI suppressed the Hunter Biden. My question, Elise, is, can you, I mean, really, I hate to say this because I love the G-men and I love the FBI, but this is not the FBI that I knew when I grew up as a kid. Can we do something to rein in the FBI, to go top to bottom and stop the politicalization of the FBI and law enforcement? I mean, they have involved themselves up front and personal in all the recent elections. It's like they're taking sides and then throwing off all these incredible charges that then get disproven. Something's got to be done. Probably the director has to go. I don't know. You tell me. What can you cook up to stop this FBI nonsense?
Well, Director Wray should resign for many reasons. I've called for him to resign, but you're right. The FBI deserves scrutiny. That bombshell news that they offered in October of 2016 to pay Christopher Steele $1 million, that is essentially using taxpayer dollars to fuel disinformation, to politicize and try to tamper with the 2016 election. They will be held accountable in a Republican majority. I sit on the House Intelligence Committee. I've had a front row seat when it comes to the FBI's weaponization and politicization, and that's part of our oversight capabilities to ensure that we hold them accountable. The subpoenas are coming. That's another part of our commitment to America, is a government that's accountable to the American people. And people know that the DOJ and FBI, they have different set of standards based upon your political affiliation.
Yeah, it really, I mean, it just seems like they're an arm of the Democratic National Committee. And the thing that's so awful, you hate to see it. I mean, you just hate to see it. These are the G-men, you know, the Crime Stoppers. And look what's happened to them. This is the worst since J. Edgar Hoover, Elise. And I hope you all really just go after it. Restore confidence in law enforcement as part of the crime problem. Anyway, Elise Stefanik, you're terrific. Good luck on the last few weeks. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, Larry.
All right, coming up.